The notification on my phone read like a death sentence. Your wife tagged you in a photo. I was sitting in my truck outside the job site in Phoenix, eating a sandwich during lunch break, when I clicked on it. What I saw made my stomach drop through the floorboards. It wasn't the photo itself, just Ashley and her supposed book club friends at some wine bar. It was the reflection in the mirror behind them. A reflection Ashley clearly hadn't noticed when she posted it 20 minutes ago. A reflection showing her sitting on some guy's lap, his hands around her waist, her lips on his neck. The timestamp on the post said 11:47 a.m. Right now. While she'd told me this morning she'd be working from home all day. My hand started shaking as I zoomed in. The guy looked familiar. I screenshot the image, then watched in real time as the post disappeared. She'd deleted it. 43 seconds after I'd opened it. My phone buzzed. Ashley. Hey babe, how's the site going? I'm making your favorite for dinner tonight. Love you. I stared at those words until they blurred. 12 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage we'd just refinanced, and now this text, dripping with false sweetness, sent minutes after she'd scrubbed evidence of her affair from the internet. But she didn't know I'd already saved it. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. Our joint account showed a withdrawal I hadn't made. $800 this morning at 9:23 a.m. Cash. Then I checked our credit card. Charges at a boutique hotel downtown, the Riverside Inn, room service. Champagne. All while I'd been sweating in the Arizona sun, running electrical for the new medical complex on Indian School Road. My phone rang. Ashley's smiling face filled the screen. A photo from our anniversary last year, both of us laughing at some restaurant in Scottsdale. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. I turned the phone off and sat there in the parking lot, watching heat waves shimmer off the asphalt. Around me, the other guys from my crew were heading back to work, joking and shoving each other. Normal people having a normal Tuesday. Meanwhile, my entire world had just collapsed in the time it took to eat half a turkey sandwich. The smart move would have been to call a lawyer right then. That's what everyone says you should do. Document everything, protect yourself, get ahead of it. But I wasn't thinking smart. I was thinking about how Ashley had kissed me goodbye this morning. How she'd reminded me to pick up our daughter Emma from soccer practice at 6. How she'd been planning my birthday party for next month, making a big deal about turning 43. How she'd been lying to my face for God knows how long. I pulled up the screenshot again, studying every detail. The guy had dark hair, expensive-looking watch, a wedding ring on his left hand. They looked comfortable together. Familiar. This wasn't their first time. My phone powered back on. I needed to know more. 17 missed calls from Ashley. 9 texts, each one more frantic than the last. Why aren't you answering? Is everything okay? You're scaring me. Please call. Did something happen at work? The last one came through as I watched. I saw you viewed that photo. It's not what it looked like. Please let me explain. There it was. Confirmation. Not a denial, not confusion, just a plea to explain away what I'd seen with my own eyes. I started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot. My foreman would wonder where I went, but I didn't care. I drove without thinking, muscle memory taking me through streets I'd known for 20 years. Phoenix in August is brutal, the kind of heat that makes you question why humans ever settled here. The thermometer on my dashboard read 112 degrees. I ended up at the Riverside Inn without consciously deciding to go there. It was one of those boutique places that tried too hard to be trendy. All reclaimed wood and Edison bulbs, the kind of spot Ashley would call charming on Instagram. Valet parking, doorman in a vest despite the heat, everything designed to separate tourists from their money. The parking garage was cooler. I found a spot on the 3rd level and just sat there, engine running, AC blasting. What was I doing here? What did I think I'd accomplish? My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I glanced at the latest message. I'm coming to the job site. We need to talk face to face. That snapped me out of it. I couldn't let her control this. Couldn't let her spin whatever story she'd been preparing during her 17 unanswered calls. I typed back quickly, "Stay home. I'll be there at 7. We'll talk then." 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. "Okay, I'm so sorry. I love you." I almost laughed. Sorry for what exactly? Sorry she got caught? Sorry the mirror caught her reflection? Sorry she'd been stupid enough to post evidence of her affair on social media? I pulled up our bank app again and transferred half the money from our joint account into my personal checking. $15,000. Then I took photos of everything. The hotel charges, the cash withdrawal, the screenshot with its damning reflection, Ashley's texts. I uploaded them all to a cloud storage account she didn't know about. Only then did I allow myself to think about our kids. Jackson was 15, Emma was 12. Good kids. Honor roll students. Jackson had just made varsity baseball as a sophomore. Emma wanted to be a veterinarian. They were going to be devastated. But that was on Ashley, not me. I checked the time. 1:47 p.m., 5 hours until I had to pick up Emma. 5 hours to figure out what the hell I was going to do with the rest of my life. The Bainbridge Island ferry cuts through Puget Sound like it has every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 years. I'm standing on the upper deck, coffee in hand, watching the Seattle skyline shrink behind us. The morning commute. Same route, same schedule, same captain making the crossing. I don't usually talk to Captain Novak. He's got his job, I've got mine. But today the wind's picking up unusual for June, and I mention it as he passes. "Weather turning on us, Captain?" He glances at the sky, then at me with this knowing smile. Nothing compared to what we get on the private deck crossings. Those can get real rough. I laugh. Didn't know there was a private deck. There isn't. He winks. But tell that to some folks. He moves on. I think nothing of it. 2 weeks later, I'm running late. Ashley had some early appointment she wouldn't specify, so I drove myself to the terminal. The 7:20 crossing is packed. Summer tourists clogging the passenger areas. I head to the upper deck for air and nearly walk into Captain Novak again. "Your wife made the earlier crossing," he says casually. "Saw her on the manifest." I freeze. Ashley took the 6:40? Yeah, she usually does Tuesdays, right? With that deckhand who helps with the private deck maintenance. That smile again. That same knowing smile. My stomach drops. Ashley doesn't work on Bainbridge. She doesn't work anywhere. Hasn't since Emma was born. She volunteers at the library on Thursdays. Only Thursdays. Right, I manage. Thanks. I pull out my phone. Text her. How's your appointment going? 3 dots appear immediately. Good. Should be done by noon. Love you. I look at the timestamp. 7:24 a.m. She's supposedly at an appointment. But Captain Novak just saw her on the 6:40 crossing. The crossing that would put her on Bainbridge at 7:15. I open our shared calendar. Her appointment is listed for Seattle. Downtown Seattle. Not Bainbridge Island. The ferry rocks beneath my feet. I grip the railing. Private deck crossings. I spend the next 3 days checking. The ferry company keeps digital manifests. I know because I installed their electrical systems 2 years ago during the terminal renovation. I know the IT guy, Brian. We grab beers sometimes. 1 beer becomes 3. Brian's complaining about his divorce. I'm sympathetic. I mention I'm worried about Ashley, about her commute safety. Could he check if she's been regular on the crossings? Just to ease my mind? He sends me 6 weeks of manifest data by Friday. Ashley's name appears 43 times. Every Tuesday and Thursday. 6:40 a.m. crossing to Bainbridge. 2:15 p.m. crossing back to Seattle. We don't know anyone on Bainbridge Island. I check our bank statements that night while she's in the shower. No unusual charges. No hotel rooms. Nothing. But there's a deckhand. Captain Novak mentioned a deckhand. I take the 6:40 crossing on Tuesday. I tell Ashley I've got an early job on the island. She kisses me goodbye at 6:15, says she'll take the later ferry for her library shift. I watch from the parking level. She boards at 6:35. I follow at a distance. She doesn't go to the passenger deck. She heads down a maintenance corridor I know from the electrical work. Crew only. I wait 30 seconds, then follow. The corridor ends at a storage area. Through the small window in the door, I see her. And I see him. Young guy. Maybe 25. Wearing a ferry company uniform. His hands are on her waist. Her hands are in his hair. They're kissing like teenagers. Like people who've done this before. Many times before. I don't confront them. I take photos through the window. 7 photos. Clear faces. Clear uniforms. Clear timestamps. Then I leave. Take the stairs back up. Stand on the passenger deck like nothing happened. The crossing takes 35 minutes. I don't move. Don't think. Just watch the water. At Bainbridge, I see them disembark separately. He goes toward the crew area. She walks to the parking lot, gets in her car, and drives away. I follow her. She goes to a house in Rolling Bay. Small place, probably a rental. She uses a key. I wait 2 hours. She comes out at 10:30, drives back to the terminal, takes the 11:05 crossing back to Seattle. I stay on the island. I walk to the house. There's a mailbox. Name on it, Trevor Paulson. I Google him on my phone. Trevor Paulson, 26, deckhand for Washington State Ferries. Single. Rents a house in Rolling Bay. I take photos of the house. The mailbox. The car in the driveway. Then I go home. Ashley's making dinner when I arrive at 6:30. She smiles, asks about my job on the island. I lie. Say it went fine. She doesn't suspect anything. That night, I can't sleep. I'm thinking about Captain Novak's comment. Private deck crossings. He knew. He freaking knew and was trying to tell me. I check the manifest data again. There's something else. Extra passengers logged on the 6:40 Tuesday and Thursday crossings. Passengers who paid cash. No names recorded, just numbers. 43 crossings. 43 extra passengers. Captain Novak was logging them. Logging evidence. I print everything. The manifests. The photos. The bank statements showing no unusual activity because she's been using cash. Cash I now realize she's been skimming from grocery money, from the household account in small amounts I never noticed. I print it all on waterproof paper, the kind we use for outdoor electrical diagrams. Then I wait for Thursday. Ashley takes her shower at 9 p.m., same as always. She's in there 15 minutes, washing away whatever happened on Bainbridge today. I walk into the bathroom. She's in the tub, eyes closed, relaxing. Good day? I ask. She opens her eyes, smiles. Library was quiet. Mrs. Patterson asked about you. That's nice. I'm holding the stack of printouts, waterproof. I had an interesting conversation with Captain Novak. Her smile falters, just slightly. He mentioned something about private deck crossings. You know anything about that? She sits up. Water sloshes. What? I drop the printouts into the tub. They float. Don't dissolve. Don't blur. She stares at them. At the manifest data. At the photos of her and Trevor. At the house in Rolling Bay. 43 crossings, I say. 43 times you lied. The captain knew. He was trying to tell me. Logging extra passengers. Documenting everything. Her face goes white. I can explain. Don't. I grab the shower chair she uses for shaving her legs. Tip it over into the tub. It crashes into the water, splashing printouts everywhere. That's you, I say. Overboard. Done. I walk out. She's screaming something behind me. I don't listen. I'm already thinking about Trevor Paulson, about his dinghy tied up at the Rolling Bay Marina, about the drill in my truck, about how easy it would be to put holes below the waterline. I'm thinking about Ashley's phone, how she leaves it charging in the kitchen every night, how easy it would be to send messages, anonymous messages, threatening messages to the ferry line. I'm thinking about how Captain Novak tried to help me, how the ferry service would take bomb threats seriously, how they'd investigate, how they'd find those threats came from a deckhand's girlfriend's phone, how they'd suspend him, investigate him, ruin him. I'm thinking about calm water, about crossing alone, about divorce papers and custody arrangements, about how I'm going to sink his dinghy this weekend, about how I'm going to ferry those threats from her phone tomorrow night, about how sometimes revenge is a crossing you take alone, leaving everyone else overboard in your wake. The water's going to get rough for them. But for me, I'm aiming for calm. I'm sitting in my truck outside Trevor's rental house on Rolling Bay, watching the lights go dark at 10:47 p.m. The drilled holes are already in his dinghy. I did that yesterday while he was on shift. 4 small punctures below the waterline that won't show unless you're looking. The boat's tied up at his dock right now, riding high enough that the damage stays dry. Won't sink until he takes it out. The phone in my hand isn't mine. It's Ashley's old iPhone, the one she replaced 6 months ago and tossed in her desk drawer. I spent 3 hours tonight getting it charged. Factory reset enough to remove her fingerprint but not her Apple ID. The ferry service's tip line is already pulled up in the browser. My hands aren't shaking anymore. They were when I dropped those printouts into the bathtub, when I watched Ashley's face go from confusion to horror as the laminated photos floated around her. She'd screamed. Actually screamed, loud enough that I worried about the neighbors. Then she'd tried the crying thing, the "please let me explain" routine. I didn't let her explain. I left her sitting in cold bath water surrounded by evidence while I packed a bag. Now I'm in a Motel 6 in Silverdale, and I'm about to sink both of them. The message I type is simple. There's a deckhand named Trevor Paulson who's been talking about doing something to the ferry. Said something about making people pay attention. Heard him on the 6:40 a.m. run last Tuesday. Thought you should know. I read it 3 times. Vague enough to be believable. Specific enough to land on Trevor. The timestamp will show it came from Seattle, from Ashley's device. I hit send at 11:03 p.m. The second message goes to a different tip line, Washington State Ferry's main security email. This one's more detailed. I've seen deckhand Trevor Paulson acting suspicious on multiple crossings. He's been meeting with a passenger in unauthorized areas. I think they might be planning something. Please check the security footage from the past month. That one's true, mostly. They have been meeting in unauthorized areas. Security footage will confirm it. The ferry service will find exactly what I want them to find. Trevor letting Ashley into crew-only spaces. The 2 of them disappearing together. The pattern of her crossings matching his shifts. The third message is the one that'll bury him. I send it to the Coast Guard tip line at 11:47 p.m. Overheard ferry employee discussing explosives. White male, mid-20s, works the Seattle Bainbridge run. Name might be Trevor or Travis. Sounded serious. Please investigate. I power down Ashley's phone and drop it in my glove compartment. Tomorrow I'll wipe it completely and toss it in a dumpster somewhere in Tacoma. Tonight I need to sleep, but my brain won't stop running scenarios. The ferry service will get the tips in the morning. They'll pull Trevor aside, ask questions. He'll deny everything, obviously, but they'll check the cameras anyway, and that's when they'll find Ashley. They'll see the pattern. They'll see him letting her into restricted areas. See them together on the private deck Captain Novak mentioned. The Coast Guard involvement will make it federal. Even if they determine there's no actual threat, Trevor will be done. No ferry service will touch him after a bomb scare investigation. His maritime career is over at 26. And Ashley? She'll be questioned too. They'll want to know why she was meeting secretly with a crew member, why her phone sent those tips. She'll try to explain about the affair, but that'll just make it worse. She'll look like a scorned lover trying to frame him, or like they were in it together. I close my eyes and see her face in the bathtub again. The way her skin went pale when she saw the photo of her and Trevor on the private deck. The way she'd grabbed for the printouts like she could make them disappear. How long? I'd asked. It doesn't mean. How long, Ashley? 6 weeks, almost 7. But it's not serious, it's just. I'd walked out before she could finish. Some things you don't need to hear. My phone buzzes. It's actually my phone this time, not hers. A text from my brother Jake. Mom says you're not answering. Everything okay? I'd called my mom earlier, told her I was staying at a motel for work. Didn't mention Ashley. Didn't mention any of it. Jake's too perceptive, though. He knows something's wrong. Fine, I text back. Just needed some space. Tell Mom I'll call tomorrow. 3 dots appear, then disappear. Then appear again. Finally. If you need anything. I know. I set the phone on the nightstand and stare at the ceiling. The room smells like bleach and old carpet. Traffic noise filters through the walls from Highway 3. It's nothing like our house in Ballard, nothing like the life I thought I had. Tomorrow, the tips will hit the ferry service. By afternoon, Trevor will be suspended pending investigation. By the end of the week, he'll be done. Ashley will be caught in the blast radius, her face on security footage, her phone linked to the threats. I should feel something about that. Guilt, maybe. Remorse. I don't. What I feel is the same thing I felt in Phoenix 3 years ago when I found out about Ashley's first affair. The same cold clarity, the same methodical calm. She'd cried then too, promised it would never happen again. We'd gone to counseling, she'd deleted social media. We'd moved to Seattle for a fresh start. Except it wasn't fresh. It was just a different location for the same patterns. The marriage counselor, Dr. Patricia Brennan, I can still see her name on the office door, had talked about rebuilding connection, about communication and vulnerability, about how affairs often stem from unmet needs. I'd tried. God knows I tried. I'd taken Ashley on dates, planned weekend trips, asked about her day. I'd been present, attentive, everything the counselor suggested, and Ashley had been planning ferry crossings to meet a deckhand 20 years younger than me. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Ashley. Please come home. We need to talk about this. Then another. I know you're angry, but please. The kids are asking where you are. The kids. Jackson and Emma are with Ashley's mom in Spokane for the week, thank God. They don't need to see this. Don't need to know their mother was caught in another affair, that their father is dismantling lives with anonymous tips and sabotaged boats. I don't respond to Ashley's texts. There's nothing to say that the printouts didn't already cover. Instead, I pull up the photos on my phone, the ones I took yesterday morning. Trevor's dinghy tied to his dock, a small aluminum boat with a 15-horsepower outboard. The drill holes are invisible in the photos, hidden just below the waterline at the stern. 4 of them, each a 1/4 inch wide. Small enough that water will seep in slowly, not catastrophically. He'll get maybe 20 minutes into a trip before he notices the boat sitting lower. By then, he'll be far enough from shore that he'll have to radio for help or swim. I'm not trying to kill him, just humiliate him. Just make sure he understands that actions have consequences. The same way Ashley will understand when the Coast Guard shows up asking about bomb threats. When her affair becomes part of a federal investigation. When everyone she knows sees exactly who she is. I set my phone down and close my eyes. Tomorrow I'll call a divorce attorney. I already know which one. Mitchell Crane, the guy who handled my coworker's divorce last year. He's expensive but thorough. He'll love the documentation I have, the photos and ferry manifests and bank records showing Ashley's lies. For now, though, I just need to sleep. Need to let the machinery I've set in motion do its work. Trevor's dinghy will sink sometime this weekend. The tips will trigger investigations tomorrow. Ashley will drown in the consequences of her choices. And me? I'll be crossing calm waters soon enough. Alone, maybe. But at least I'll know what's under the surface. The motel room smells like industrial cleaner and old cigarettes, even though it's supposedly non-smoking. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at Ashley's old phone, the one I used to send those tips. It's Wednesday morning now, a little after 9. I haven't slept more than an hour, maybe 2. My work phone buzzes. Text from Danny, my foreman. "Where you at? Got the Fremont job starting today?" I text back, "Family emergency, need a few days." "Everything okay?" "Will be." I set the phone down and pick up Ashley's again. The urge to check if anyone's responded is overwhelming, but I know better. The whole point was to make it anonymous. Opening those email accounts now, even on her device, could create a digital trail. Instead, I pull up the news on my phone. Local Seattle stations. Nothing yet. It's only been 14 hours since I sent those tips. These things take time. Federal agencies don't move at civilian speed. My stomach growls. I haven't eaten since yesterday's gas station sandwich. There's a diner across the parking lot, the kind with yellowed menus and coffee that could strip paint. I grab my jacket. The waitress is maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain, and the kind of efficient kindness that comes from decades of dealing with travelers and people in transition. She doesn't ask why I look like hell. Just pours coffee and takes my order. I'm halfway through eggs and toast when my phone rings. Unknown number, but it's local. "Hello? Mr. Patterson, this is Detective Amy Carlson with Seattle PD. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" My hand tightens on the phone. Too fast. This is too fast. "Sure. What's this about?" "We're investigating some threats made against Washington State ferries. Your name came up in connection with an employee, Trevor Paulson. Can you tell me about your relationship with Mr. Paulson?" I take a sip of coffee, buying time. My voice comes out steady. "I don't have a relationship with him. I know who he is because he works the Bainbridge route I take for work sometimes." "Have you had any conflicts with him?" "No. Why would I?" "What about your wife? Does she know Mr. Paulson?" Here it is, the moment where I decide how much to give them. "You'd have to ask her that, Detective. We're separated as of yesterday. I'm staying at the Cascade Inn off Aurora." A pause. I can hear her writing. "I see. When did you last see your wife?" "Yesterday afternoon, around 4. "And where was that?" "Our house, in Ballard." I set down my fork. "Detective, what exactly is this about?" "Mr. Paulson received some threatening communications yesterday evening. Tips were sent to multiple agencies suggesting he was planning to harm ferry passengers. The tips came from a phone registered to your wife, Ashley Patterson." I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. I don't know what to say. Ashley and I are having problems, obviously, but I can't imagine why she'd do something like that. "When did you last have access to your wife's phone?" "I don't have access to it. She keeps it with her." Not a lie. Her current phone is definitely with her. Does she have more than one device? She had an old one, an iPhone 8, I think. But that was years ago. I have no idea where it is now. More writing sounds. "Mr. Patterson, where were you yesterday evening between 6 and 8 p.m.? "Here, at the motel. I checked in around 5:30. Also true. I sent those tips from the parking lot before I went to the front desk. Can anyone verify that? The clerk who checked me in. Young guy, maybe 25. Blonde hair. All right, We may need to speak with you again, and we'll need to talk to your wife. Do you have a current number for her? I give her Ashley's cell. Detective, is this serious? The threats, I mean. We're treating it seriously, yes. Homeland Security is involved. Threats against transportation infrastructure are federal matters. Right, of course. I pause. Is Trevor, Mr. Paulson, is he in trouble? I can't discuss details of an ongoing investigation, but I'd advise you and your wife to make yourselves available. We'll be in touch. She hangs up. I sit there with my phone in my hand, eggs congealing on the plate. It's working. Maybe too well. I hadn't expected Seattle PD to call me directly. I'd figured they'd go straight to Ashley, trace the phone, maybe question her. But they're being thorough, following every connection. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Ashley. The police just called me. They're coming to the house. What did you do? I stare at the message. She still thinks she can control this. Still thinks I'm the one who needs to explain myself. I didn't do anything, but apparently you've been busy. Good luck with that. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. This is insane. I don't know what they're talking about. Someone must have stolen my old phone. Funny how these things happen. You're doing this. I don't know how, but you're behind this. I don't respond. Let her panic. Let her try to explain to police why threatening messages came from her device, why she's been sneaking onto ferries to screw a deckhand half her age, why her husband has manifests and photos and a timeline that makes her look like either a vengeful psycho or a careless cheater. Either way, she loses. I pay for breakfast and walk back to the motel. The morning is overcast, typical Seattle gray, and there's a smell of rain coming. A few cars are scattered in the parking lot. Mine's at the far end, away from the office. As I'm unlocking my room, another text comes through. Not Ashley this time. It's from a number I don't recognize, but the area code is local. Mr. Patterson, this is Captain Novak. I heard there was some trouble yesterday involving one of my crew. I wanted to check if you're all right. I step into the room and close the door behind me. The captain, the man who tried to warn me with his cryptic comments about private deck crossings. Who knew what was happening on his ferry and couldn't say it outright? I'm managing. Thank you for asking. If you need anything, let me know. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. You tried to tell me. I should have listened sooner. Some things we don't want to hear until we're ready. Take care of yourself. I sit on the bed, phone in hand. The captain knows. He has to know what I did, or at least suspect. But he's not going to say anything. Maybe because he thinks Trevor deserves it. Maybe because he respects the code. You don't interfere in another man's marriage, but you don't protect the guy who wrecked it either. My work phone buzzes again. This time it's a call from the house. Ashley's calling from the landline. I almost don't answer, but curiosity wins. What? They're here. Her voice is shaking. The police are here and they're asking about Trevor and about threats and they want to see my phone and I don't understand what's happening. Then tell them the truth. The truth? What truth? I didn't send any threats. No. But you've been sleeping with him. On the ferry. In crew-only areas. Using crossings that don't appear on public manifests. I keep my voice flat. So tell them that truth. Tell them how you met him, how long it's been going on, how you used my commute as cover. You bastard, you absolute... Mrs. Patterson? A new voice, female, authoritative. This is Detective Carlson. We need you to end this call now. The line goes dead. I set the phone down and lie back on the bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. It's done. The machinery is in motion now and there's no stopping it. Ashley will have to explain everything. The affair, the phone, her movements. Trevor will be suspended, investigated, possibly charged if they think he had any knowledge of the threats. The ferry service will dig into their security protocols and find all those off-manifest crossings. And me? I'm just the wronged husband, the guy who found out his wife was cheating and left. Nothing illegal about that. My phone buzzes one more time. Email notification. From the divorce attorney I contacted yesterday, Brian Foster. Mr. Patterson, received your documentation. Very thorough. Can you come in Friday at 10 a.m.? We should move quickly on this. I type back, I'll be there. Then I close my eyes and for the first time in 36 hours, let myself sleep. The detectives leave at 2:47 p.m. Ashley stands at the living room window, watching their unmarked sedan disappear down the street. Her reflection in the glass looks pale, hollow. I'm sitting on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through work emails I'm not actually reading. They think I did it, she says quietly. They think I sent those threats. I don't look up. Did you? She spins around. Of course not. How could you even? She stops herself, takes a breath. Someone used my old phone, the one I gave you to recycle. The one sitting in my truck for 3 months? I meet her eyes. Pretty convenient timing. That's what I told them. Her voice cracks slightly. That anyone could have taken it, that it wasn't secure. I set my phone down. What did they say? Detective Carlson asked if I knew Trevor Paulson personally. Ashley wraps her arms around herself. If I'd ever been to his residence, if I had any reason to wish him harm. And I said no to all of it. She's watching me carefully now. I said I'd taken the ferry a few times for errands on the island, but I didn't know any of the crew personally. The lie sits between us like a third person in the room. They're going to check the manifests, I say. Ferry system logs, every passenger vehicle, every walk-on with a ticket. Something flickers across her face. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. I used cash, she says, then realizes what she's admitted. I lean back against the couch cushions. For the errands you didn't take to see the deckhand, you don't know. Don't. Her voice hardens. Don't act like you're some innocent victim here. You did this. You took my phone, you sent those threats, you... Prove it. The 2 words stop her cold. What? Prove it, I repeat. Prove I took your phone. Prove I knew where Trevor lived. Prove I sent anything to anyone. I stand up, walk to the kitchen. Because right now, the only thing the police can prove is that threats were sent from a device registered in your name, using information about a man you claim not to know, on days when you were supposedly running errands you paid for in cash. I pour myself water from the tap. My hands are steady. Ashley follows me to the kitchen doorway. The divorce lawyer called while you were in the bathroom. I have an appointment Friday morning. Good. Good? Her laugh sounds brittle. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Ashley? That I'll fight for this? That we can work through you sleeping with a 26-year-old ferry worker after we moved across the country to save our marriage? I drink the water. I already played that game in Phoenix. I'm done. The kids are with your mother in Spokane, where they're going to stay until we figure out custody arrangements. I set the glass down too hard. It doesn't break. I talked to Jackson this morning. Told him we were having some problems, that we'd explain everything soon. You had no right. I had every right. I'm his father. My phone buzzes on the counter. Text from an unknown number. Dinghy's taking on water. Coast Guard found the holes. They're calling it vandalism, adding it to the federal investigation. CN. Captain Novak. I deleted immediately. Who is that? Ashley asks. Work. She doesn't believe me, but she can't prove that either. My phone rings. Actual call this time. Number I recognize. Detective Carlson. I answer. Mr. Patterson. Detective Carlson, do you have a moment? Sure. I put it on speaker, watching Ashley's face. I'm calling to inform you that we've obtained warrant access to your wife's financial records and phone data. Standard procedure in a federal threat investigation. Papers rustle on her end. We've also requested ferry system records for the past 3 months. Okay. I wanted to give you a heads up that this may reveal information about Mrs. Patterson's activities that could be relevant to your personal situation. Ashley's eyes go wide. I appreciate that, Detective. We'll be in touch if we need anything further from either of you. She pauses. Mr. Patterson? The old iPhone your wife mentioned. The one she claims was given to you? Do you still have it? My heart rate doesn't change. No. Dropped it at an electronics recycling event at the community center about 6 weeks ago. They had a bin set up in the parking lot. Do you remember which organization was running it? Sign said King County E-Waste Program. Didn't really pay attention beyond that. Thank you, that's helpful. She hangs up. Ashley stares at me. 6 weeks ago. Yeah. The threat started last week. Guess someone pulled it from the recycling. I shrug. Those programs aren't exactly secure. Phones sit in bins for days before processing. You're lying. Prove it. She grabs her purse from the counter, keys jangling. I'm going to my mother's, in Spokane, with the kids. Okay. Just okay? You're not going to stop me? Why would I? They're your kids too. I meet her eyes. But Ashley, Detective Carlson has your phone data, your financial records. Ferry manifest with your vehicle plate logged 43 times in 6 weeks. I let that sink in. Running to Spokane doesn't change what they're going to find. Her hand shakes slightly on the purse strap. I didn't send those threats. I believe you. But you did. What I did, I say carefully, was trust my wife. Move across the country for her. Give her a second chance after Phoenix. I walk past her toward the stairs. What you did was screw a deckhand on private crossings while I was pulling wire in 100-degree warehouses. Where are you going? To pack. I'm staying at the extended stay on Aurora until we sort out the house. I pause on the third step. Your lawyer appointment is Friday at 9. Mine's at 10:30. We can coordinate through them. Trevor's going to tell them, she says. About us, when they question him. Probably. They'll know I lied. Yeah. That makes me look guilty. I turn around. Ashley, you are guilty. Not of sending threats, but of 43 documented ferry crossings to cheat on your husband. Of lying to police. Of using cash to hide your tracks. I come back down 2 steps. The difference is, I can prove what you did. You can't prove what you think I did. She's crying now. Quiet tears, the kind she used to use to get her way. I'm sorry, she whispers. About Trevor, about all of it. I was stupid and selfish and save it for your lawyer. I head back upstairs. She's going to need a good story for why you lied to federal investigators. I pack methodically. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, important documents. The waterproof printouts of ferry manifests are already in my truck, hidden in a locked toolbox under the back seat. Photos of Ashley and Trevor are backed up to 3 different cloud accounts under email addresses that don't exist anymore. The drilled holes in Trevor's dinghy were made with a bit. I bought cash at a hardware store in Tacoma, wearing a mariner's cap and sunglasses. The bit went into the sound-off Alki Beach the same night. Ashley's old iPhone, the real one, was wiped, reset, and dropped in a Goodwill donation box in Renton 4 days before the threat started. The phone that sent the threats was a refurbished iPhone 7 I bought off Craigslist, activated with a prepaid SIM, logged into Ashley's old iCloud using passwords I'd watched her type 100 times. That phone is currently in pieces at the bottom of 3 different dumpsters across King County. I zip my duffel bag. Downstairs, I hear Ashley on the phone with her mother, voice high and panicked. My own phone buzzes, Email from the divorce attorney's office confirming my Friday appointment. I text Captain Novak's number. Thanks for the weather reports. Won't be taking the morning ferry anymore. 3 dots appear, then disappear. Then, fair seas, Mr. Patterson. I delete the whole conversation. Downstairs, Ashley is still crying into the phone. I walk past her to the door, duffel over my shoulder. Wait, she says, covering the phone. That's it? You're just leaving? Yeah. What about the kids? What about 12 years? I open the door. The Seattle rain has started again. Light mist that makes everything look soft and gray. What about them? I say, and walk out. The ferry terminal parking lot is half empty when I pull in at 6:47 a.m. I haven't slept. The apartment feels like a crime scene now, evidence of 12 years scattered across rooms that suddenly belong to someone I never really knew. My phone vibrates. Jackson. Grandma says you and Mom are getting divorced. Is that true? I stare at the text. Ashley must have called her mother last night after I left. Of course she did. Probably sobbing about how cruel I was, how I ambushed her, how she made a mistake, but I'm overreacting. Yes, I'm sorry you found out like this. We'll talk when you're back. Emma's crying. She wants to come home. My chest tightens. Tell her I love her, both of you. This isn't about you two. I don't know what else to say. The cursor blinks. Jackson doesn't respond. The 7:15 ferry to Bainbridge loads vehicles in neat rows. I watch from the passenger deck, coffee burning my throat. The crew works efficiently, yellow vests moving in practiced patterns. No sign of Trevor Paulson. He's been suspended, probably sitting in some interview room right now, trying to explain why bomb threats were sent from a phone belonging to a woman he claims not to know. Captain Novak appears on the bridge deck, scanning the water. He doesn't look down at the passengers. Professional distance. I wonder what he knows. What he saw during those 43 crossings. Whether he tried to warn me sooner and I just didn't catch it. The ferry's horn blasts twice. We pull away from the terminal, Seattle's skyline shrinking behind us. My phone rings. Unknown number. This is Agent Keller with the FBI. Am I speaking with... I give my name. We're investigating the threats made against Washington State ferries. I understand you were contacted by local police? That's right. We'd like to ask you some follow-up questions. Would you be available to come to our field office this afternoon? I watch the wake spread behind the ferry, white foam churning gray water. Sure, what time? 2 o'clock. Do you need the address? She gives it to me. I write it on a napkin with a pen from my truck. Federal Way, south of Seattle. Can I ask what this is about? I keep my voice level. Curious, but not defensive. Just routine questions. We're interviewing everyone connected to the subject of the threats. Trevor Paulson. A pause. I can't discuss details of an ongoing investigation. Right. I'll be there at 2. She hangs up. I crush the napkin in my fist, then smooth it out again. The address is still legible. The ferry docks at Bainbridge at 8:02. I don't get off. I ride it back to Seattle, then catch the 9:30 return. Back and forth like a metronome. Like Ashley did for 6 weeks while I worked late on the Fremont project, trusting her when she said she was visiting galleries or meeting friends. On the 3rd crossing, a crew member approaches. Young guy, maybe 23, with a WSF badge that says Danny. You doing okay, sir? I've seen you on a few runs. Just riding. Helps me think. He nods like this makes perfect sense. Rough week? You could say that. Yeah, we all had one. He glances toward the bridge. Lost a crew member. Federal investigation. Whole thing's crazy. I sip cold coffee. What happened? Can't really talk about it, but... He lowers his voice. Between you and me? Guy was hooking up with passengers, using crew areas. Captain finally had enough and documented everything. My pulse quickens. Captain Novak? Yeah, he's old school. Doesn't mess around with safety violations or people abusing their position. Danny shakes his head. The guy who got suspended, Trevor? He thought he was untouchable. Captain had been building a case for weeks. Weeks? At least, maybe longer. Captain doesn't do anything halfway. Danny straightens. Anyway, I should get back to work. Hope whatever you're thinking through gets clearer. He walks away. I watch the water, pieces sliding into place. Captain Novak didn't just know. He was documenting, building evidence. That comment about private deck crossings wasn't a slip. It was a message. He was telling me to look, to check. The manifests I got from the IT contact would have existed anyway. Novak probably requested them himself. He just made sure I could access them too. I pull out my phone and search for Captain Novak's full name. LinkedIn shows his profile. 28 years with WSF, multiple safety commendations, known for running the tightest ship in the fleet. A news article from 6 years ago mentions him testifying in a harassment case involving a deckhand and passenger. His testimony got the deckhand fired and blacklisted from maritime work. He wasn't just warning me. He was building a parallel case against Trevor, using Ashley as evidence of pattern behavior. I was collateral information in his investigation. The realization sits heavy in my stomach. I wasn't the architect of Trevor's downfall. I was just another tool Novak used to clean up his ferry. My phone buzzes. Ashley. The FBI wants to talk to me again. They're saying I lied about knowing Trevor. They have photos. What did you do? I don't respond. Please. The kids are asking questions. My mom is freaking out. This is getting out of control. You made it out of control. I just documented it. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened, both times. I was lonely and you were always working and I block her number. Should have done it yesterday. The ferry docks in Seattle at 10:47. I drive to the apartment, shower, change into clean clothes. The FBI wants someone who looks stable, cooperative, a wronged husband who's just as confused as everyone else about these terrible threats. At 1:30, I'm in the truck heading south on I-5. Traffic is light. The FBI field office is a concrete building with tinted windows and an American flag out front. I park in visitor parking, check my reflection in the rearview mirror. I look tired, but calm. Agent Keller is 40-something with sharp eyes and a handshake like a vice. She leads me to a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a camera mounted in the corner. Thanks for coming in, she says. This shouldn't take long. Another agent joins us. Younger, male, introduces himself as Agent Torres. We're investigating threats made against Washington State Ferries personnel, Keller begins. Specifically, threats targeting a deckhand named Trevor Paulson. You know him? No. I know who he is now, after everything. But I'd never heard of him before this week. But your wife knew him. Apparently. Keller slides a photo across the table. Ashley and Trevor on the upper deck, his hand on her waist. This was taken 3 weeks ago. Were you aware of their relationship? Not until Monday. I found ferry manifests showing she'd been taking crossings I didn't know about. Then I talked to Captain Novak. What did Captain Novak tell you? He made a comment about private deck crossings. It was vague, but it made me suspicious. So I looked into it. Torres leans forward. How did you obtain the manifests? I have a contact who works in ferry IT. I asked if he could check whether my wife had been taking extra trips. He pulled the records. Name? I give them the IT guy's information. He's clean. He pulled public record data at my request. Nothing illegal. And the photographs? Keller taps the image. I took them myself. Followed her on a crossing last Tuesday. Saw them together in a crew-only area. What did you do with that information? Printed it out. Showed it to my wife. Filed for divorce. Did you contact Trevor Paulson? No. Did you threaten him in any way? No, I've never spoken to him. Keller and Torres exchange a glance. She pulls out another document. The threats were sent from a phone registered to your wife, but the phone itself, an iPhone 8, was reported lost 6 months ago. Do you know anything about that? My heart rate stays steady. Ashley loses phones constantly. She's on her third one this year. Where would the old phone be? No idea. Probably in a drawer somewhere, or she sold it. She does that sometimes, sells old electronics online. Torres makes a note. Do you have access to your wife's current phone? No, we don't share passwords or anything like that. What about the old phone? Would you have known where it was? I barely keep track of my own phone. Hers? No. Keller sits back. Your wife claims she doesn't know how the threats were sent from her old device. She says she hasn't seen that phone in months. Then someone else must have it. Who would have access to your home? To her belongings? I don't know. Friends? Her mother? Anyone she gave a key to? The questions continue for 40 minutes. They circle back, rephrase, probe for inconsistencies. I keep my answers simple and consistent. I'm a betrayed husband who documented his wife's affair. That's all. Finally, Keller closes her folder. That's all for now. We may have follow-up questions. Am I in trouble? Should you be? No, I just want to understand what's happening. She stands. We're investigating federal threats against transportation infrastructure. That's serious. If you think of anything else, anything that might help us understand who had access to that phone, call me. She hands me a business card. I pocket it and leave. In the parking lot, I sit in my truck and breathe. My hands are steady. The interview went exactly as expected. They'll investigate. They'll find nothing connecting me to the threats or the sabotage dinghy. Ashley's old phone is at the bottom of Puget Sound, wiped and weighted down with fishing sinkers. The drill I used is back in my work truck with 100 other tools. Trevor Paulson will face consequences for abusing his position. Ashley will face consequences for lying to federal investigators. Captain Novak will have his clean ferry. And I'll have my divorce. My phone buzzes. The attorney's office confirming tomorrow's appointment. I start the truck and head north, back towards Seattle, back toward whatever comes next. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday in October, 6 months after that first ferry crossing where everything unraveled. I stood outside the King County Courthouse watching leaves scatter across the plaza, the settlement papers folded in my jacket pocket. Ashley got the house. I didn't want it anyway, didn't want to live in rooms that smelled like her lies. I got primary custody of Jackson and Emma, weekends and summers with their mother. The judge had been sympathetic after reviewing the evidence, especially once the FBI concluded their investigation. Trevor Paulson was never charged with the threats. They couldn't prove he knew anything about them, but he lost his job anyway, blacklisted from maritime work after Captain Novak's documentation showed a pattern of using his position to pursue passengers. Last I heard, he was working construction in Tacoma. Ashley avoided federal charges by cooperating fully, admitting to the affair and the cash ferry crossings. The humiliation of having her lies exposed in federal interviews was punishment enough. I never told anyone what I'd actually done. Not my lawyer, not my brother, not even Captain Novak, though I suspect he knew. Some things are better left in the deep water. Jackson adjusted better than Emma. At 17 now, he's focused on baseball scholarships and pretends the divorce was inevitable. Emma took it harder. She's 14, and still asks sometimes if her mom and I might get back together. I tell her the truth. Some things, once broken, don't fix. You just learn to build something new. I sold the electrical contracting business last month, took the money and bought a small boat. Nothing fancy, just a 20-footer with a reliable engine. I take it out on Puget Sound most weekends when the kids are with Ashley. The water's honest in a way people aren't. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Standing on the courthouse steps that October day, I thought about the man I'd been 6 months earlier. The one who'd drilled holes in a stranger's boat, who'd sent anonymous threats, who'd methodically destroyed lives to balance some cosmic scale of justice. I'd convinced myself it was righteousness, that Ashley and Trevor deserved what they got, that I was just correcting an imbalance. But standing there in the autumn cold, I understood something darker. Revenge hadn't fixed anything. It hadn't made me whole or healed the betrayal. It had just made me someone who could drill holes in boats and sleep soundly after. Someone who could lie to federal agents without his pulse quickening. Someone who'd become exactly what he hated. A person who manipulated and deceived to get what he wanted. The ferry horn sounded in the distance, calling passengers to another crossing. I didn't look toward the water. I thought about Captain Novak's final text. Fair seas, Mr. Patterson. He'd known what I was. Maybe he'd even approved, in his own way. But fair seas aren't earned through sabotage and anonymous tips. They're earned through honest navigation, even when the waters get rough. I started walking toward my truck where Jackson was waiting to grab lunch before I dropped him at practice. He'd asked earlier if I was okay, and I'd said yes. Another lie, but a smaller one. The kind we tell to protect the people we love from the uglier truths about who we've become. The papers in my pocket felt heavier than they should. A marriage dissolved, a family split, 2 lives ruined, all because I'd decided I was judge and executioner. Ashley had betrayed me, twice, but I'd responded by becoming someone I barely recognized. Someone who could calculate revenge with the same precision I used to wire electrical systems. Maybe that's the real lesson. Betrayal doesn't just damage the betrayed, it offers them a choice. You can let it make you bitter and vengeful, or you can let it teach you something about the person you want to be going forward. I'd chosen wrong. I'd chosen the holes in the boat, the anonymous threats, the careful destruction of other people's lives. I couldn't undo those choices. Trevor Paulson's career was finished. Ashley's reputation was destroyed. My kids would grow up in a broken home, forever marked by their parents' failures. But I could choose differently going forward. Jackson looked up from his phone when I reached the truck. All done? Yeah, all done. How do you feel? I unlocked the doors and climbed in. How did I feel? Hollowed out. Victorious and empty. Like someone who'd won a war by burning down his own city. Ready to move on, I said. He nodded, satisfied with the answer. We drove toward the practice field in comfortable silence. The water in Puget Sound was gray that day, choppy with autumn winds. Somewhere out there, pieces of Ashley's old phone rested on the bottom, evidence of my crimes dissolved in salt water and time. Somewhere in Tacoma, Trevor Paulson was probably pulling wire or pouring concrete, his maritime dreams finished. Somewhere in Ballard, Ashley was packing up our house, preparing to move somewhere smaller, somewhere that didn't echo with the ghost of our marriage. And I was driving my son to baseball practice, pretending to be the good father, the wronged husband, the victim who'd simply documented the truth. The lies we tell ourselves are the deepest waters of all.